Bruchim Haboim. Welcome everyone. This is not just a regular shiur. I would like to consider this an event. The Rabbi Yosef Engel Yahrtzeit event. Tonight, the first day of Chodeh Cheshvan, the second day of Rosh Cheshvan, Aleph Cheshvan, is the Yahrtzeit of Gaon Rabbi Yosef Engel. Anyone who's been listening to our shiurim over the last many years knows that there's a special place in my heart for Rabbi Yosef Engel. His chidushim are exhilarating, they're elevating, they're inspiring, and the Machon Maggid Torah, who produces Rabbi Yosef Engel's works in a beautiful way, has an astounding piece in the Torah Yosef on Parsha's Noach. This is such a great piece that Rabbi Yosef Engel says that he has a kusha atzuma, a bamba of a kasha, a bomb question, and he says a chidush that he says is a davar chadash, it's a new idea, but it's also, he says, v'gadol hu atzli, it's very great to him. Now the svarim of Rabbi Yosef Engel are particularly chashuv, and they're even more chashuv today on his Yahrtzeit. You know, they asked Rabbi Yosef Engel, you're such a Gaon, you're such a Mechadesh, why don't you open a yeshiva and you'll spread Torah all over the world? And he said, from my svarim, I will make Talmidim. So he really held his svarim, he cherished them. That was his yeshiva, which means that we who have the zchus to learn from his svarim are in his yeshiva. We're his Talmidim. And the chashivos that he has for his svarim could be seen in, it's well known that before his Petira, he said that anyone who helps publish his svarim, and this was announced at his Levaya, he will be a melitz for them in this world, and he will be a melitz for them in the Olam HaEmes. So if anybody wants to be mishtatef in in the publication of the Sifrei Rabbi Yosef Engel, you could contact Machon Maggid Harakiah, or you could let me know, and it should be a zechus of great proportions. So I want to share with you an astounding approach of Rabbi Yosef Engel, Benoigea, our Parsha. The Gemara says in Brachos, Chaf Hei Amud Beis, Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Akum Arum Asar Likrois Kriya Shema Kenegdai. If you have a Oved Avodah Zarah, you have an idolater, and they're not properly clad, there's Ervasam Kenegdai, you can't say Shema. That's the Gemara. That's the statement of Rabbi Yehuda. For like the Gemara, why do we need to say if you have an idolater whose erva is opposite you can't say Shema? Even if you have a Jew, what's the chidush of a guy? So the Gemara says, no, a Jew, obviously, you can't say Kriya Shema, because lo yirvacha ervas davar. But it's a chidush that even an akum, even an idolater, why? Because since the pasuk says in Yechezkel Perek Chaf Gimel pasuk Chaf, Asher basar chamorim basaram, that their basar doesn't have the status of Adam. We're talking about an oived koichavim umazalis, but rather it's like a chamar. So you would say, just like you could say Krishma opposite a chamar. A chamar doesn't have a din erva. So too, someone who's an idolater. The chiddush is no. The erva of an idolater is still an erva. How do we know? What's the source? What happened to the compelling idea that basar chamorim basaram? The answer is avada basar chamorim basaram, but we have a pasuk in the Chumash, in Parshas Noach, in this week's Parsha, the ervas avihem loiro, that they didn't look at the erva of Noach. That means Noach has an erva. An akum has an erva. This was before Klal Yisrael. An akum has an erva. Noach wasn't a Jew. Comes Rabbi Yosef Engel in the Beis HaOitzar, and he asks a kusha atzuma. We know Tosfos Masechta Nida Ainu Ad Beis says that there's a chiluk between Bnei Noach before the Torah was given and after the Torah was given. After the Torah is given, we know that akum are not called Adam. Okay, that's like the pasuk says, Asher Basar Chamar Basaram. But before the Torah was given, they are called Adam. And earlier on in the Sefer, a hezber is given in the beginning of Parshas Noach. This beautiful Sefer brings a hezber that so long as Klal Yisrael wasn't separated from Ovdei Kacham Azolis, they did have the status of Adam. However, after the Torah was given and the Jewish people were, so to speak, filtered out, so then Ovdei Kachavim are no longer considered Adam. So Rabbi Yosef Engel, according to this great principle of Tosfos, that after the Torah was given, Bnei Noach are not called Adam, but before the Torah was given, they indeed are called Bnei Adam. How could the Gemara in Brachos conclude that the erva of an akum is an erva because of the pasuk ve'erva saviyam leirau? That was before the Torah was given. So before the Torah was given, Bnei Noach were Bnei Adam. So if they were Bnei Adam, they do have a status of an erva. But we're talking now, if someone's Koreh Kriya Shema, after the Torah was given. After the Torah was given, Atem Kruyim Adam ve'in Akum Kruyim Adam. How could the Gemara in Brachos bring a raya from the pasuk in this week's Parsha, ve'erva saviyam leirau, that an akum has a din of an erva? After the Torah was given, akum doesn't have a din of an erva. The pasuk ve'erva saviyam leirau, that was before the Torah was given. Tosfos Anida says before the Torah was given, akum does have a din of an erva. Says Rabbi Yosef Engel. The answer to this question is obvious. Tosfos in Masechta Nida, who differentiates between before and after the Torah was given, he's going according to the shita of Rashbi, Reb Shimon bar Yochai. The Rashbi is the one who teaches Atem Kruyim Adam, Ve'ein Oivdei Kechavim Kruyim Adam. That's the teaching of the Rashbi. The Rashbi says this in Masechta Yevamis. The Rashbi says in Yevamis that Akum Einon metamen ba'ayah, because va'atein soini, soin marisi, adam atem. That's the opinion of Reb Shimon bar Yochai. So according to the Rashbi, who says that Akum is not called an Adam, okay, before the Torah was given, they are called Adam, and you could ask, how could the Gemara bring a raya from the Erva Saviyam Leira'u? But we don't paskin like the Rashbi. Tosfos holds, Tosfos writes in Yevamis, Samach Aleph Amid Aleph, Divrei HaMaschal Mimaga, that the halacha is like Rosh Gamliel against the Rashbi, and not only are before the Torah was given, the Akum are called Adam, after the Torah was given, Akum is called Adam. There's no difference according in the world of Rav Shimon Gamliel between before and after the Torah was given, because they hold fundamentally Akum is called Adam. So you can't ask, how could the Gemara and Bracha say, I'll bring a raya that an Akum has a din of an erva, because the erva saviyam leiro, that was before the Torah was given, and before the Torah was given, Akum has a din of an erva. Okay, they also have a din, they also are called Adam before the Torah was given, and they're called Adam after the Torah was given, according to Rav Shimon Gamliel. In other words, in the world of Rav Shimon Gamliel, who we paskin like, according to Tosfos and Yevamis, there's no chiluk, there's no difference between before and after the Torah was given. Rav Shimon Gamliel holds Akum are matame ba'oil even after the Torah was given, and because they are called Adam. So don't say, well, maybe they only have a din erva before the Torah was given because they were considered bnei Adam before the Torah was given. Because Rosh Gamliel holds, they're also called bnei Adam after the Torah was given. So you can't make that distinction, Rosh Gamliel, who we paskin like. You can only make the distinction in the Rashbi, but we don't hold like the Rashbi. Okay, that is how Rabbi Yosef Engel answers the question on the Gemara Brachos. How could you learn that from the pasuk? Ve'ervas aviyam leira'u. But says Rabbi Yosef Engel, it comes out a davar chadash. But according to the Rashbi, who held taka after the Torah was given, Akum is not called Adam, then there's no longer a source that an Akum has a din of an erva. Because the whole source that Akum has a din of an erva is from the pasuk ve'erva saviyam leira'u. But in the world of the Rashbi, you could say that's talking about before the Torah was given. Before the Torah was given, Akum are called bnei Adam, therefore they have a din erva. Masha'ein kain, after the Torah was given, where Akum, according to the Rashbi, is not considered Adam, so they wouldn't have a din of an erva. So according to the Rashbi, you don't have a raya from the pasuk of erva saviyam leiro. The whole source that you're now to read Kriya Shema by an Akum is from the pasuk ve'erva saviyam leiro, and we pointed out that there's no raya from there in the world of the Rashbi, because you could say it's only before the Torah was given where Akum has a din of Adam, so they also have a din erva. But after the Torah was given, where according to the Rashbi, based on the Gemara in Yevamis, quoting the pasuk in Yechezkel, that Atem kriyim Adam vein Akum kriyim Adam, they don't have a din of Adam and they don't have a din erva. So according to the Rashbi, we don't know that you can't be Kriya Shema by Ervas Akum. Okay, so maybe that's the halacha. According to the Rashbi, it would come out that there's no din erva by akum min ha-Torah. The din of lo yira b'cha erva stavar is only by Yisrael. Says Rabbi Yosef Engel, according to this chidush, that according to the Rashbi, there's no iser erva midairaisa by an akum. Yesh li loymar bezeh davar chadash begadol hu etzli. It's a great chidush. If you look in the Yerushalmi and Shabbos, when the Yerushalmi and Shabbos quotes the 18 takkanot chachamim of Beis Shammai, the 18 takkanot that were made at a certain period of history, attributed to the Beis Shammai and the Beis Hillel, it counts 10. It counts the 10 that were mentioned before. And the rest of the 8, the Rashbi says, are as follows. On that day there were geyser on the bread of an akum, ve'al l'shoinan, and on their tongue, ve'al edusan, and on their testimony. That's what you need to know from the Yerushalmi. So that's Rabbi Yosef Engel. All the Mefarshim are matmiya. They were geyser on that day that you can't accept the testimony of an akum. Testimony of an akum is not acceptable midairaisa. The testimony of an Evan Kanani is not acceptable midairaisa, even though he's chayv mitzvahs. The testimony of a Jewish woman is not acceptable midairaisa. Certainly of an akum. How could the Yerushalmi say that one of the 18 things that was nigzar on that day was a dusan, the testimony of an akum? It's disqualified midairaisa. Says Rabbi Yosef Engel, in my humble opinion, we need to make one tiny little adjustment in the word edusan. And this is a very, very easy adjustment because we're just going to tweak a letter that could be easily exchanged for another letter. Namely, we're going to make the daled of edusan a resh, ervasan. There were geyser on that day that the erva of an akum, you can't say dvarim sheba kedusha. Instead of edusan, the edus of an akum is pasal midairaisa. On that day there were geyser midrabanan on the erva of an akum. On the erva of an akum? But the erva of an akum is an erva midairaisa. The Bavli in Masechta Brachos, Nun Chav Hei Amud Beis, learns it out from the pasuk. The erva saviyam loyra'u. No, this is the Rashbi. The Rashbi would say you can't bring a raya from the erva saviyam loyra'u. Why? Because that's before the Torah was given. Before the Torah was given, an akum has a din adam, and therefore they have an erva. But after the Torah was given, an akum doesn't have a din of adam, so they don't have a din erva. So their erva is not pasal midairaisa. So could you say Kriya Shema opposite it? Midairaisa you could, but on that day, the Rashbi reports there were geyser midrabanan. The Rashbi had a Mesorah that on that day there were geyser midrabanan, not on edusan. All the Mefarshim are matmiya. Edusan, it's disqualified midairaisa. No, you don't read it edusan. It's ervasan. The Baal HaMemra of the Yerushalmi is the Rashbi. The Rashbi is l'tamei, who considers erva of an akum mutter midairaisa, and on that day there were geyser midrabanan. Says Rabbi Yosef Engel, Adarabba, we could say, how did the Rashbi know that akum, ovdei kachamazos, are not called adam? You know how he knew it? Because he had a Mesorah from his Rabbeim. That on that day, they were geyser on ervas akum. They were geyser on ervas akum, but ervas akum is asur midairaisa, but ervas aviyam leiro. No, it must be ervas. It must be the erva of an akum is not asur midairaisa. Why? Because after the Torah was given, akum is not considered adam, and therefore the source of the Rashbi of how he knew that after the Torah was given, akum is not considered adam, is from the fact that he had a tradition from his Rabbeim that on that day there were geyser midrabanan on ervas akum. It must be midairaisa. Ervas akum is not a problem because since they're not kruyim adam, their erva is not an erva. Well, now we know where the Rashbi got it from. But how did the Rashbi's Rabbeim know this? Where did the Chachmei, the early Tanoim of Beis Shammai, Beis Hillel, where did they know this from? That akum lo mikri adam. And therefore, they maintain that their erva is mutter midaraisa, and they're only aser midrabanan. You know how they knew it? They knew it from the pasuk in Yechezkel. Va'atein soini, soin marisi, adam atem. This is gufa, the drasha that the Rashbi brings in Yevamos, that akum ein metamem ba'oyel, because va'atein soini, soin marisi. That's the Rashbi shita. The Bavli, on the other hand, based on the Gemara in Shabbos, the Yushalmi counts Ervasan as one of the Yud Ches Dvarim. The Bavli in Shabbos, between Yud Gimel and Beis and Yud Zalman Beis, didn't count Ervas Akum as one of the 18 things. You know why? Because the Bavli is L'shitase. Because the Bavli holds Akum are called Adam, like Rav Shimon Gamliel. If they are called Adam, it's not one of the Yud Ches Dvarim. Their erva is an erva midaraisa. And where does the Bavli get it from? The Bavli says in Brachos Chafei Amud Beis, ve'ervas avihem lo'ira'u. So basically, the Bavli is l'shitase. The Bavli holds, like Rav Shimon Gamliel, that Akum are called Adam. If they are called Adam, therefore we could learn out that their erva is an erva. And don't try to say the pasuk is talking about before the Torah was given. What difference does it make before the Torah was given, after the Torah was given? The only distinction you can make is if you say Akum is not called Adam, but the Bavli doesn't subscribe to that. And the proof is, the Bavli holds that one of the 18 things that the Chamor Geyser on Ba'isayim was not Ervas Akum, because it's also Medairaisa, because they're called Adam. Mashenki in the Rashbi says in Yevamos that Akum Le'nikru Adam. Therefore, the Rashbi L'shitase, in the Yushalmi, says it's one of the 18 things that they were Geyser on Ervas Akum. And now, Rabbi Yosef Engel puts the final crown on this presentation. He says, according to his tweak in the Yushalmi says they were geyser on their l'shoinam, meaning that means not to learn the language of Akum, and they were geyser on their erva. Now it's known based on the Sefer Yetzirah that the covenant, the bris of the foreskin, the arla, the mila, is mechuven keneged the bris halashon, which is a very important idea, that the mouth and the mila are connected. Mila is gematria. Peh, the chida, and many of his svarim talks about that if somebody wants to be zahir b'shmiras habris, they have to be zahir b'diburav. It's a very important concept. It is an amazing observation. The mitzvah of mila is where? It's in Parshas Mitzoira, which is the punishment for diburim asurim. So we know there's a connection between the lashain and erva. So according to Rabbi Yosef Engel's tweak in the Yushalmi, we understand the smichus, the juxtaposition of there are geyser on l'shoinam and there are geyser on ervasan. Let's just add that the punishment of the mabel, the Gemara tells us that kol ha'oiches ba'ama, the Gemara says in Shabbos Mem Aleph, ki'ilu mevi mabel la'olam. It's like you brought a mabel to the world, and it could cause tumah. And we know the kilkul of Dar HaMabel is the Ramoitzi Zar Levatala. So the Mabel is connected to Tumas Habris. Isn't it interesting that Noach, who was saved in what? A teva. Teva means a word. And the dimensions of the teva are 30 by 50 by 300. Lashain, the word Lashain, are the dimensions of the teva. 30, Lamed is 30, Shin is 300, Nun is 50. To indicate the protection from the tumah that brought the mabul oilam is shmiras halashain. So this is all the great presentation of Rabbi Yosef Engel on his Yahrtzeit. May his chus be a protection to all who learn his Torah, all who help disseminate his Torah, all who help bring his manuscripts to the light of day. Wishing everyone bracha v'hatzlacha, agin chodesh, zechusam, Zechusay Yagein Alein Ba'al Kol Yisrael. Amen.